Christmas Day, primetime, millions watching NBA games. Nike drops a Caitlin Clark commercial that fans have been begging for since 2023. The ad is brilliant, packed with Easter eggs, dripping with Jordan-level marketing energy. But here's what nobody's talking about. The timing isn't about celebrating Caitlin. It's about saving the 2026 season from the WNBA's biggest PR disaster in history. Because while Nike was planning their Caitlin Clark coronation, the league was imploding behind closed doors, players rejecting record-breaking contracts, fans turning against the very athletes they cheered for months ago, and the 2026 season hanging by a thread. Nike didn't just honor Caitlin with this ad. They threw her a lifeline, and maybe threw themselves one too. Let's talk about what really happened here. The commercial itself is undeniably good. Nike recreated the iconic Jordan and Bird nothing but net energy. Everyone keeps asking Caitlin, "Can you make it from there?" And she keeps backing up, draining threes from increasingly ridiculous distances. It's simple, it's memorable, and it creates that GOAT-level association without Nike ever having to say it out loud. That's smart marketing, but you've been saying this for weeks. Where was this 2 years ago? Where was this when Caitlin was breaking every record in college basketball? Where was this during her historic rookie season when she sold out arenas and crashed ticket websites? Nike had the biggest star in women's sports sitting on their bench while they rolled out signature shoes for players who, let's be honest, weren't moving the needle financially. And fans noticed. They called it out constantly. If you believe the story behind the story matters, smash that like button. It tells us we're on the right track. So why now? Why Christmas 2025? Let's filter out the noise and look at what was actually happening when Nike greenlit this campaign. The WNBA's collective bargaining agreement negotiations were turning into a full-blown nightmare. Players rejecting deals that would triple their salaries. Fans feeling betrayed by what looked like greed at a time when the league was finally gaining traction. Social media turning toxic. The whole beautiful momentum from 2024 was crashing into reality. And Nike. They had to be watching this thinking, we're about to launch a signature shoe line for the only player who actually drives ratings and revenue. But if there's no season in 2026, we've got nothing to sell. The entire women's basketball ecosystem was threatening to collapse right as they were ready to cash in. That's not conspiracy theory, that's just business reality. Nike needed this ad to work on multiple levels. First, it had to remind casual fans why they fell in love with women's basketball in the first place. Not because of contract disputes or league politics, but because of Caitlin Clark draining impossible shots and making it look easy. The ad does that. It's pure basketball joy. No drama, no controversy, just talent. That's strategic messaging during a crisis. Second, it had to prove to hardcore fans that Nike actually gets who Caitlin is and where she came from. And this is where they did something genuinely impressive. The Easter eggs weren't just cute marketing tricks. They were proof Nike finally did their homework. Let's walk through what they included. The outdoor setting matters. This isn't shot in some pristine practice facility. It's blacktop. It's a driveway. That's where Caitlin actually grew up playing in small-town Iowa. Nike could have gone glossy and corporate. They chose authenticity instead. Then there's Coach Lisa Bloomer appearing at the 22-second mark. Caitlin wore number 22 at Iowa and wears it now with the Fever. But it goes deeper. Coach Bloomer is standing at the exact spot where Caitlin broke the NCAA all-time scoring record. That's not random placement. That's honoring the moment that defined her college legacy. Fans who lived through that season will recognize it instantly. That's respect. The tagline up from anywhere works on two levels, literally. Caitlin shoots from anywhere on the court. Logo range doesn't exist for her, but symbolically, it means you can make it from anywhere. Small town Iowa. Overlooked markets, paths that don't look traditional. That's aspirational messaging that fits her story perfectly. Nike nailed that. The cameos tell their own story. The Kelsey brothers interviewed her on their podcast. Michael Che sat next to her on Saturday Night Live. Travis Scott was there when she set the new D1 scoring record. These are people from completely different worlds. NFL, music, comedy, all asking the same question. Can you make it from there? That reinforces something critical. Caitlyn's appeal isn't niche. She's not just a WNBA story. She's a cultural story. And then there's the song Choice. Boys Want to Be Her by Peaches. The lyrics say it all. Girls want to be her. Boys want to be her. That's the Caitlin Clark effect in one line. She pulls in everyone. The haters keep saying her fans are only from the Midwest, only casual viewers who don't really care about women's basketball. The Cantonese subtitles in the ad shut that narrative down completely. Nike is acknowledging her global fan base. They're preparing for international expansion. They're thinking bigger than the WNBA's traditional audience. Reading between the lines reveals something fascinating. Nike didn't just make a commercial. They made a statement about where they think women's basketball is going, and more importantly, where they think it needs to go to survive what's coming next. Because here's what I want to know, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Nike actually had a come-to-Jesus moment about respecting Caitlin? Or did they look at the CBA implosion and realize they needed to salvage 2026 before their billion-dollar investment disappeared? I genuinely want to hear what you think, because this is where it gets complicated. Let's talk about what the CBA disaster actually looks like from Nike's perspective. They announced the Double C logo earlier in 2025. Signature shoe line coming spring 2026. That's not a small commitment. That's infrastructure. Design teams, manufacturing contracts, global distribution plans, marketing budgets in the tens of millions. You don't just pivot away from that if the season gets canceled or delayed. Nike was all in before this ad even dropped. But then the players rejected the league's offer. And not just any offer. We're talking about deals that would have fundamentally changed the financial reality of women's professional basketball. Salaries tripling, charter flights becoming standard, better benefits across the board. The kind of deal that 5 years ago would have seemed like fantasy. And the players said no, they wanted more. They had leverage, and they used it. Now, many of you have been conflicted about this. On one hand, you want players to get every dollar they deserve. The WNBA has been underpaying talent for decades compared to the value they create. On the other hand, the timing felt tone-deaf. The league was finally building momentum. Caitlin Clark brought millions of new fans. Ratings were up. Attendance was exploding. And just when casual fans were starting to invest emotionally, they got hit with labor disputes and potential work stoppages. Nike had to see this coming. They're not naive. They've got people whose entire job is monitoring risk in their partnerships. So when they chose Christmas Day for this AD, one of the biggest advertising days of the year, right alongside NFL and NBA games, that wasn't accident. That was a deliberate message. We're still investing. We still believe. Don't lose faith in 2026. The ad gives fans permission to stay excited despite everything else burning down around them. That's the subtext nobody's talking about. Nike needed to remind people why they fell in love with this sport. Not the contracts, not the politics, not the league drama, just Caitlin draining impossible shots and making it look effortless. That's what sells. That's what brings people back. But here's where I start questioning things. If Nike really valued Caitlin the way this ad suggests, why did it take 2 years? She's been a superstar since her sophomore year at Iowa. She broke attendance records. She made women's college basketball appointment viewing. Nike had all that data. They knew what they had. So why were they dragging their feet? We're getting into speculation territory here, but the breadcrumbs lead somewhere interesting. Nike's overall sales have been struggling. Their basketball division has been losing ground to competitors. They needed a win, a big one. And Caitlin represented that opportunity, but maybe they didn't want to fully commit until they knew the WNBA itself was stable enough to support a global campaign. Think about it from their perspective. You can't build a signature shoe line around someone if the league they play in might not exist next year. That's too risky. You need institutional stability. You need guarantee of games, of highlights, of moments that justify your marketing spend. The CBA chaos threatened all of that, so Nike waited. They did teasers and soft launches while watching to see if the league could get its act together. And when it became clear the WNBA was heading toward crisis, Nike made their move, not out of pure altruism, but out of necessity. They had too much invested to let everything collapse. This ad is as much about protecting their investment as it is about celebrating Caitlin, maybe more so. Does that make it less effective? Not really. The ad still works. Fans still love it. Caitlin still gets the spotlight she's deserved. But it does change how we understand what's actually happening here. This isn't just Nike finally doing right by their biggest star. This is corporate damage control disguised as celebration. And you know what? That might be exactly what the WNBA needs right now. Because connecting the dots reveals something the league doesn't want to admit. They're more dependent on Caitlin Clark than they've ever been willing to acknowledge publicly. She's not just a star player, she's the entire growth narrative. She's what convinced brands like Nike to take women's basketball seriously again. And if she walks away or gets caught in CBA crossfire, the whole house of cards comes down. Nike recognizes that this ad is insurance. It's saying to Caitlin, we see you, we value you, we're building your empire regardless of what the league does, and it's saying to fans, stay with us. 2026 is going to be worth it. Whether the WNBA deserves that loyalty right now is debatable. But Nike isn't taking chances. So where does this leave us heading into 2026? Cautiously optimistic? I'd say the ad is genuinely great. The signature shoe line could be massive if Nike actually commits resources the way they're implying. Caitlin's global appeal is undeniable. But the CBA situation is still unresolved. The season is still at risk. And Nike just spent Christmas Day trying to convince everyone everything's going to be fine. If you want to see how 2026 actually plays out, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because this story is far from over. The CBA might get resolved. It might get worse. Nike might deliver on everything this ad promises, or they might pull back if the league situation deteriorates. We're going to be covering every development, every twist, every moment that reveals what's really happening behind the scenes. This has been my first video in a month, because honestly, I needed the break from CBA drama. But this ad reminded me why I started covering this league in the first place. Not for the politics or the contracts, for the basketball, for Caitlin draining logo threes and making it look easy. That's still there. That's still real. And whether Nike's motives are pure or calculated, they gave us a reason to believe 2026 might actually deliver. Thanks for sticking with the channel through everything. Your support means the world. Drop a comment with your honest take on Nike's timing, and I'll see you in the next one.